All right, amen. We back again tonight, and so today I wanted to talk about surrender and what it means, and I want to call this the freedom on the other side of surrender. Um, Sometimes we say we trust God, but we still hold the strings. We say Thy will be done, but we end up editing the plan. Surrender surrender sometimes feels scary because control feels safe. But control is often the very thing delaying the promise. God isn't trying to take something from us, He's trying to free us from what's tying us down. And I want us to visualize a balloon. And so a balloon can rise, but only if the string isn't tied to something. And so some of us are praying to go higher while still holding on to the string that's keeping us low. What we choose not to surrender, we give permission to eventually control us. Um, Sometimes we don't surrender people God is asking us to release. We hold on to what's familiar because of a fear of loneliness, um, and we try to remember the good, but obedience sometimes looks like letting go. And let's go to the Bible here with this one. Let's go to Genesis chapter 12. And Genesis 12:1 says, "The Lord has said to Abram, leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on earth will be blessed through you." Sometimes we can't step into promise while dragging what God told you to drop. Abraham had to leave before he could receive the promise. That was God's instructions for Abraham to go before he could even receive the promise. And in that moment, I know that was pretty hard on Abraham, but in that next verse, it says Abraham departed as the Lord had instructed. And sometimes that's what we have to do. We have to be obedient and trust that God's plan is better for us than anything that we could have even imagined. And that's where that's the joy that you find in surrendering, is understanding His perspective and not your own. Um, we sometimes as humans tend to not surrender outcomes. We have unsurrendered outcomes. We don't just hold people, we hold how things must happen. We'll say, God, I trust you as long as it looks like this. Or bless me, but do it my way. And That's not surrender. That's a negotiation. You you pleading with God so that you can have it your way, and that's not what He's asking you to do. He's asking you to obey His command, and that's what we have to understand and separate ourselves in that moment. So let's go a little bit deeper, and let's go to Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 3. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. And it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek His will in all you do, and He will show you which path to take. I'm going to read that one more time. Proverbs 3, 5 and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek His will in all you do, and He will show you which path to take. Delayed promises often sit behind undisclosed expectations. We live in a society where we demand stuff has to be done the way we want it and when we want it. Amazon is big right now. And I mean, it's been big for a while, but it's order on demand. It has everything, and you can, if you're not a Prime member, you can have it shipped. You can pay extra to have it shipped the same as a Prime member. So we've lived in this society so long where it's on demand. It's how we want it, and we have a choice on how we receive it. And so to truly surrender means that you surrender even those desires to God. And that's something that, if we being honest, a lot of us are not willing to do just yet. And so we have to understand that a lot of us are, we have to wake up and be prepared to surrender. Some of us have unsurrendered pain, and we haven't surrendered hurt, betrayal, disappointment. So we carry that into every new season, and we can't receive with hands full of yesterday. So as I talked before, it's about letting it go and giving it to God. But if you give it to Him with a closed fist, He can't take it from you, and that means that you can't receive anything new. So this is just talking about things that we haven't surrendered, but sometimes we haven't surrendered people in our lives, and we've allowed not only things to hold our strings, but some of us have allowed people to hold our strings. So the question I want to ask is, who's holding your string? Sometimes we give people emotional authority God never assigned them. Sometimes we give people emotional authority God never assigned them. We allow them to control our peace, our mood, our confidence, and even our decisions, all because of a spirit of fear of rejection, the spirit of fear of abandonment, a need of validation, or old attachment. If someone can control your obedience, they're holding your string. And God has called us for a purpose. And if we decide that we're not going to follow that purpose, or we tell God, I trust you as long as it looks like this, then we're being disobedient. And the Bible speaks clearly about those who are disobedient. And that's not the lane that we wanna fall into. So I want us to understand that wounds that never healed become strongholds. What is a wound? A wound is a result of an event. And a stronghold is what's formed when the wound never heals. Someone who hurts you creates a wound. When you don't process it, pains hardens that wound. Once the pain hardens, lies start to take root within that wound. Once the lies take root in the wound, that's when a stronghold is created. So some examples of these lies that we start to believe are, I'm not enough, or everyone leaves, or I have to control everything, or I can't trust anyone. So these are lies that we've accepted as truth on behalf of the stronghold that was created from not healing the wound. Unhealed wounds don't just hurt, they start talking. And the enemy loves to build in a place we've never surrendered. So when we don't heal, it's like leaving the door open for the enemy to come right on in and kick his feet up and make himself at home, because we've decided that this is something that I'm not prepared to let go. God, you can have everything else of me, but this part I want to hold on to. And that's not the way that we should go. So unforgiveness, resentment, and bitterness, these are strings. These are all strings that are tied to us, and we're allowing someone to hold those strings and play on them whenever they feel ready to. Sometimes we haven't surrendered who we thought we'd be by now. The timeline that we imagine, or the version of life we plan. So a lot of us, and myself included, we set goals for ourselves. And even in the Bible, it says a man plans, but the Lord guides his path. And so when we don't confer with God and with our plans, sometimes our plans lead us to destruction. And like I said before, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, human desires will always lead to destruction. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go to Luke 22. And in Luke, this is Jesus modeled what surrender should look like. And we have to understand Jesus went through pretty much everything that we go through on a day-to-day. And God came down here in human form to experience what it is to be human. And he felt every emotion that we feel. He went through temptations that we go through. And they say it's only one man that was here that was perfect, and that was Jesus. So let's go Luke 22, and we'll go 39. We'll start at verse 39, and it says, Then, accompanied by the disciples, Jesus left the upstairs room and went as usual to the Mount of Olives. There he told them, "Pray that you will not give into temptation." He walked away about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet I want your will to be done, not mine." Let me read that one more time. He said, "Father, if you are willing, please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet I want your will to be done, not mine." Then an angel from heaven appeared and strengthened him. He prayed more fervently, and he was in such agony of spirit that his sweat fell to the ground like great drops of blood. At last he stood up again and returned to the disciples, only to find them asleep, exhausted from grief. "Why are you sleeping?" he asked them. "Get up and pray so that you will not give in to temptation." Even Jesus felt the weight. Even Jesus asked if there was another way, but he still surrendered. Verse 42, it says, "Father, if you are willing, please take this cup of suffering away from me." Jesus was going through it. He was going through it so much that his sweat started to drop, and on the ground it was red like blood. I've never been in a situation where my sweat looked like blood, but I've been in plenty of situations that I definitely didn't want to be in that moment. And we have to, just like Jesus, catch ourselves. Sometimes it's God don't ask you how you feel. He's not worried about how you feel. He's worried about the purpose. And if you're fulfilling the purpose, if you're obedient to his will, because in order to surrender, he's asking us to give it all to him. And so for a lot of us, we don't want to surrender, but we look to our past and we can't understand why nothing's changed. And it's because God can't write the next chapter if we keep reading the old one. So we can't go in front of God, but God isn't going to put you in a position that you're not ready for. And until you surrender and say, and give it all to him, not just what you want to, then the next chapter of your life can't be written. So surrender doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It means you trust God more than you trust your understanding. Just like in Proverbs 3 and 5, we lean not onto our own understanding, but we need to go to God and ask him for the wisdom so that we can have the understanding. Imagine how high you rise if you finally cut the string. What we won't bring into the light, the enemy keeps in the dark. What we won't bring into the light, the enemy keeps in the dark. And so we've talked about this yesterday about being the light in the times of darkness. And so the darkness is there for a reason. It's there to hide the things that we're not ready to give to God. But God didn't call us to stay in the darkness. He called us to be the light. Jesus said in his word, in the Bible, we are the light. So You were set apart. You weren't called to fit in like 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 Tetris. Like Tetris. You weren't called to fit in into the next row of blocks. You were called to be different and set apart and be the light and be the God for others. And that is your identity, but uh, far too often a lot of us won't surrender an identity that we've accepted from this from this society. What society has told us what we should look like, or how we should act, or what we should accept as humans. People uh, have to set boundaries and be comfortable with those boundaries, and it takes a different mindset in order to do so consistently. To lean in on your faith and trust that God's plan is the right way for your life. Uh, Surrender is how healing begins. Surrender sounds like loss, but it's actually releasing people's control. It's releasing past pain. It's releasing the lies we believed to survive. We can't be spiritually free while being emotionally chained. So surrender says, God, I give you this hurt. God, I give you this fear. I give you this person, or I give you the version of me that was built out of pain. So we talked about forgiveness and it being more than just a word, and I think that message may have been tailored towards forgiving others, but most importantly, we need to start forgiving ourselves. Um, in order to experience the life that God had destined for you to experience, it requires an unlearning of what you have been taught in order for Him to renew your mind and give you His perspective of life. We accepted our perspective as humans that what is right is right. We can go back to the beginning, Adam and Eve, and understand that when Eve was tempted by the snake, God had already explained to Adam what the commandment was and what he was to obey. Adam had then told Eve the same story, and the snake put a thought in Eve's head. And so the fall of man came from just a thought. And that's what we have to understand. The valley of the shadow of death is that's not a valley, that's your mind. And so we are here on earth, and the Bible says that God is the vine and we are the branches. And when we stay in Him, we produce fruit. We produce lasting fruit. Whenever we're apart from God, we can't do anything. We stuck. And so that's when we start to overthink. That's when you start to get in your mind. That's when you get in the valley and start to have these thoughts that are not from God. But again, I know whenever I start to wander off, I always come back and ask Him immediately, make these thoughts your thoughts. Because if I lean on my own understanding, it's no telling where these thoughts are taking me. Because the enemy wants me to get further away from God. So sometimes we have to start asking ourselves when we come across different individuals and new relationships, we have to start saying to ourselves, is this relationship taking me closer or further away from God? Um, and so I want to ask, what are you still holding that God asked you to release? What are you trying to control that God never gave you authority over? What pain are you still gripping that's gripping you back? The promise isn't being withheld, it's being waited on by a version of you that's finally free. We need to forgive ourselves because our future you is sitting there waiting. He's waiting for you to surrender what has been holding you back from what you prayed for, what has been holding you back from the story that God has been trying to write this whole time. It's time. The promise isn't being withheld, it's being waited on by a version of you that's finally free. Surrender is freedom. Surrender isn't losing control, it's transferring control to the only one who can actually handle it. I want us to identify who's the person holding your emotional stream. I want us to identify what the wound that was never healed. And I want us to identify the lie we started to believe because of pain. And when we do this honestly, and we give the three things that we've identified to God and say, here, this is it. I want us to start writing down how your life is transpiring from that moment. Because that's what you will look back on and say, it was at that moment that the version of me that was free was waiting for. We don't have to relive it, but we do need to release it. So that's what I want to leave us with tonight. I encourage you guys to surrender what's been gripping you for years and tearing down. I want us to start tearing down some mental strongholds in our lives and start healing some emotional wounds. It's time to allow God to work through us and all of us, not just the part that we feel comfortable giving, but all of it. He asked for you as this vessel to be the light of the world. And if we have darkness in us, then we're not giving someone else the real opportunity to guide them from the darkness that they're in. So it's time for us to surrender it all to God and lay it down at his feet and pick up our own cross and carry it. Because somebody is watching, because they need to see how strong God makes us in our weakness. And it's time for a change.